All right, let's hope for something better from across the Tasman. We are joined by our Australian correspondent, Jaqui Lane, and she joins us now, who I think is. Are you on the. Yes, you are. Welcome to the show,
I'm
Jack.
here. Thank you very much,
Nice to have
Michael.
you on. Hey,
Yeah, great to be here.
I'm sorry I'm a little late this morning. I have just said goodbye to my youngest daughter, Jack. You'll appreciate this. Zoe, heading off to Queenstown Airport to catch her plane to go and spend her first year at Auckland University. And I was just saying to her as I said goodbye, Jack, this morning, I've had her in my custody and care for 12 years. And this will be the first time at which I now won't see her for months and months on end. Gosh, it's really a moment, isn't it, when your youngest leaves and heads off to varsity and the house is silent.
It really is. And my son did that many years ago now, but it's like this thing you've poured all this love into, and suddenly they're walking out the door.
And there's a sort of pride associated with it because you go, you've turned out okay. I haven't botched it.
Yeah, very much so. and
Despite
then, of course,
me.
And then you go through the motions where no news is good news. So when they call you, there's usually a request for help at the end of the line.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's 100% right. The 20s, isn't it interesting? I've got this version that 20-year-olds head off. It's their individual independent stuff, off they go. But they do tend to come back at 30.
Yeah, that's pretty common, certainly over here. Certainly, I mean, COVID had a big impact on that, but yeah, people coming back a bit older because they're trying to save money for a house or a wedding or something, so they kind of come back in, which is kind of nice. It's happened to me, and I must say I quite enjoyed having my much older adult son with me for 15 months. We'd both had enough of it by the end of it, but it was quite a nice. It was quite a it was quite a good experience just to have kind of, I guess, an adult relationship, an adult to adult, as opposed to adult and child, parent and child.
Indeed. All right. Now, heading across Australia, by the way, over the last 24 hours, we've got, and I wondered if this is a story just quickly, it is obviously over in Australia, the Chinese naval task force that's sailing in the Tasman Sea. How are the Australians reacting to this?
Interesting. Well, they were off Sydney, I think, a couple of days ago, and there's 3 of them. How are we reacting? In a very low-key kind of way. Australia has this really interesting relationship with China because most of our prosperity comes from sending minerals and resources to them. So we've always got, and we were in the deep freeze up until a couple of years ago because China didn't like what Australia was doing under the coalition, and but now trade is back on target. So Australians tread very carefully in relation to this because they're our economic saviour, really.
Why do you think, actually, why do you think, that Australians, or that there would be concern at all, though? I mean, they've arrived in our waters, a naval task force. Is there any suggestion that we are militarily at risk from them?
I think there is certainly a concern that China's becoming more active in the Pacific and around the countries of this part of the world. Certainly, they've been economically much more active. I think they're asserting their interest in being engaged in this part of the world.
Yeah, I see your
Yeah,
coalition is saying that the move is provocative, and that
yeah.
it's an unprecedented display of China's naval power in this region. I'm sure they've never been here before, in actual fact. We have signed recently, or at least the Cook Islands government signed a sort of a cooperation agreement with the Chinese as well. one would suggest that they really are serious about upping their presence in this neck of the world, wouldn't you think?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, they're providing major investment in Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu, and various parts of the Pacific, and they want to project that they're an interested party, and that, I mean, certainly from Australia's point of view, and I think probably New Zealand, we haven't been as active in supporting our South Pacific neighbours as much as we perhaps should have been, because we've been relying on the US to do that for us on our behalf, really. And with Trump Mark II, I think that it's no accident that China's got 3 naval ships floating around in this part of the world, because certainly reading the broader politics here with Trump and Russia and the Ukraine thing, I think China's looking to see what America does there, and I think that, Taiwan's of great interest to China, so they're putting their claim out there. That they regard this is their part of the world too. It's going to be very interesting.
Vacuum, it's an old political maxim, it has to be said. If President Trump's going to withdraw United States foreign interests and strategic and military interests into American borders, which seems to be occurring at the moment, China will be quite happy to go there. Which brings me to the next issue. What are the responses from the Australian politicians to what President Trump's been saying the last week about strategic issues, including the Ukraine?
Well, typically Albanese and the Labor government's been pretty low key. Then you're trying to fight off, I guess, getting tariffs on Australian aluminium and steel. And Peter Dutton has come out, and other people have come out, all guns blazing, saying it's not acceptable. Certainly, what he's been saying about Zelensky and Ukraine. So, yet again, a pretty weak response from the government of the day, and a much stronger response from Peter Dutton and the coalition.
Yeah, I guess I have some sympathy, though, for Albanese in this. On the one hand, you can't get too pissed off, to be perfectly honest with you, Donald Trump at the moment, on whatever he might say about anything, because the last thing you need to do is have tariffs put on all your exports to the United States of America.
Yeah, interesting. And look, I like you, I have a great deal of sympathy, and also, I have a view about Donald Trump as he says these outrageous things because he wants to get a reaction and get people to kind of, run around after him. And I think really, the less people react, the better. So I don't necessarily think that what the Labor government's doing here is not a bad thing at all. I think just, let them rant and work the back channels and try and get the outcome you want. And I think that's a realistic way to deal with it. And Trump.
What's your support been for the Ukraine in Australia? We've committed. Listen, New Zealand's military, it's sort of an oxymoron, really, the New Zealand military force, but we've committed a little bit of money towards humanitarian stuff. I think we sent them some clapped out LAVs, which they probably use for spare parts. What's the Australian commitment been to the Ukraine?
Look, it's been patchy, but pretty consistent. We've provided them with some of our tanks, a lot of supplies, some money, and I think, in that order. So I think, and several rounds thereof of tanks, money, and support, that kind of thing. So, and then we've got a few Australians over there fighting as mercenaries, and one's currently in Russia, who's a prisoner of war, apparently. So, I think apparently there's about a dozen or so Australian soldiers over there as mercenaries.
No, we've lost a couple of Kiwis, I think, and they're doing the same thing, in actual fact. But, but just going back to China now, I've suddenly thought about it. AUKUS, Australia, the UK,
Yeah.
US, that whole agreement is predicated upon purchasing or building nuclear-powered submarines for the purpose of keeping China in check militarily. How's that going?
Look, I don't think it'll ever happen, Michael. I mean,
Oh, really?
it was. Yeah, I think it was. It's not well thought through. It's decades in the making. We've just paid America a down payment of billions to help grow their submarine facility so that they can manufacture the things for us. Um, so it's such a big, vast 30-year project that I'm not sure it'll ever really kind of get up and going. But it's there and it's a reality, and so I guess from the defence point of view, and government, Trump won't be there in 4 years' time. It's a good deal for America and the American submarine thing. So I think you'll find the military people just keeping out of the way and plodding through it the next 4 years.